In February 1967, photographer Henry Grossman found himself in England once again on assignment. Upon learning that Grossman was heading to London, the editor of Life magazine asked if he could take some new photographs of the Beatles for an upcoming article. From his hotel, Grossman contacted George Harrison, who happened to be celebrating his birthday with a party hosted by his wife Patty. George invited Grossman to attend and also proposed a group photo shoot earlier in the day. Since George, Ringo, and John lived close to one another, it was easy for them to gather, with only Paul needing to travel in from the city. That afternoon, George took a short trip to Shepperton Studios, where he was involved in the filming of I'll Never Forget What's His Name, a satirical British drama. On his way, he picked up Grossman. Though the main photo session was scheduled to take place later that day at Ringo's home, the two had time to return to Kinfauns, George's estate, where George was eager to show Grossman what the band had been working on. In his home cinema, George arranged a private screening of the newly filmed promotional video for Strawberry Fields Forever, an imaginative and surreal piece. They spent the day together in Esher, where Grossman took candid photos of George and Patty in their kitchen and dining room, one of which later appeared in Life magazine. During another visit to Harrison's home, Grossman noticed what appeared to be a wall decoration. George explained it was a sitar, though he hadn't found anyone to teach him to play it. Grossman suggested he could easily afford to bring a master sitar player from India to teach him. George smiled at the idea. Not long afterward, George traveled to India and began studying sitar with Ravi Shankar, adopting many Eastern customs along the way. When Grossman next visited, George greeted him barefoot and asked him to remove his shoes as well. On one occasion, a friend of George's named Amiya Dasgupta, a talented sitarist and student of Ravi Shankar, came to visit. George played sitar in his living room, while Amiya listened and offered guidance. Later that same day, the group arrived at Ringo's home first. Ringo led them into what he called his fun room, where he enthusiastically demonstrated a new device he had acquired, a color organ. Resembling a television, it displayed shifting, psychedelic color patterns that moved in sync with music. While waiting for the rest of the band to arrive for the photo shoot at Sunny Heights, Ringo's home, George, Amiya, Grossman, and Ringo took a walk through the expansive terraced garden in the backyard. Over time, Grossman observed that all four Beatles had a deep affection for animals. Their tenderness with pets seemed genuine, perhaps because animals were indifferent to fame, fortune, or social standing. Pets offered unconditional love, a contrast to the often transactional nature of human relationships. Grossman recalled that Ringo had a small white poodle named Tiger, of whom he was very proud, and Paul had a large dog named Martha that resembled a pony. Around this time, John Lennon purchased a military-style jacket from a vintage clothing shop in London called I Was Lord Kitchener's Valet, located on Portobello Road. The shop, which sold Edwardian and Victorian clothing, quickly became a cultural touchstone of the era. Other famous customers included Mick Jagger, members of Cream, and Jimi Hendrix. After Jagger wore one of their jackets on a TV appearance, demand soared, and the store sold out by midday the following morning. Back at Kinfauns after the photo shoot, George changed into clothing inspired by traditional Indian dress, reflecting the emerging hippie aesthetic of the late 1960s. Grossman was taken aback when Patty emerged with a radically different look. Her long blonde hair had seemingly vanished. It turned out she was wearing a wig earlier that day, as George preferred long hair, and she occasionally used wigs for variety without having to cut her own hair. As the birthday party got underway, guests began arriving and left their shoes by the door. All were close friends of George and Patty, many bringing homemade dishes to share. Grossman found the guests fascinating and took photos of many of them simply because he found them intriguing. Among the attendees was musician David Crosby. The highlight of the evening was a live performance by Ali Akbar Khan, a highly respected sarod player, accompanied by Amiya on sitar and another musician on tabla. George recorded the entire performance using a high-end Brunel reel-to-reel tape recorder, with a microphone suspended before the trio on a long stand. Years later, Patty Boyd reflected on George's dual nature. He was deeply spiritual and genuinely searching for enlightenment, but also a man subject to human flaws and temptations. Though he struggled with personal demons, he was always striving to do the right thing. Patty described him as a kind and gentle person, a true spiritual seeker who remained her close friend throughout life.